Thank you.
Nah.
Oh, I'm sweating.
Congrats.
Thank you. Congratulations.
This is 911. Do you have an emergency?
Yes, someone's dead. She got shot.
She got shot in the head?
Yes, with bullets.
On the morning of November 18, 2024, a peaceful neighborhood in Ohio was shattered by the sound of gunfire. A chilling 911 call led police to a gruesome discovery: a woman's lifeless body lying in her own yard. The victim was 33-year-old Lucretia Black, whose life was cut short by a woman she was married to for over 5 years. Nobody, including the police, could have imagined the dark truth of what happened between them. The police were left with haunting questions about what led to this horrifying act. But it wasn't long until the chilling truth would emerge. This is the heartbreaking case of Lucretia Black. Before we begin, we would like to extend our deepest condolences to the family and friends of Lucretia, as well as everyone affected by this tragedy. Lucretia's story starts in Springfield Township, Ohio, a quiet suburban town that was generally peaceful and the crime was rare. But this peace would be shaken by the brutal scene that would fall upon Lucretia. Lucretia was born on August 31, 1991 in Cincinnati, Ohio. While details about her early life and family background were not publicly disclosed, one thing was certain: she was someone who was deeply loved by those around her. She was also known for her ability to bring people together, whether through her humor, kindness, or unwavering support for those she cared about. With that, Lucretia was able to build strong connections with anyone she meets, whether friends, colleagues, or family. Lucretia was someone to leave a lasting impact through her kindness and resilience. As a 33-year-old woman, Lucretia had a whole life ahead of her. She was passionate about making the most of every opportunity, always looking forward to what was next. And so filled with dreams, she was a hardworking woman. In 2017, she worked at an airport where she was known for her warm and welcoming personality. But all of this would change when she met a woman who would alter her fate forever. In 2019, Lucretia started to form a relationship with the 42-year-old Teria Denise Brown. At first, Teria appeared to be someone stable, someone with life experience, maturity, and the potential to build a future with Lucretia. And Teria was not without her past. She had 3 beautiful children from a previous relationship that ended. Teria's children, Kevon, Mumu, and Elijah, were aged 23, 21, and 8, and she often portrayed herself as a devoted mother to these children who prioritized her family above all else. Teria would frequently share posts about her kids, expressing how much they meant to her and appeared to be loving. For others, being with a single mother would have been a problem, but for Lucretia, it was a sign of responsibility and commitment. She believed that Teria's experience as a mother made her a dependable and caring partner, and so she fell in love. As their relationship grew, they spent more time together, blending their lives and attending family gatherings. Lucretia embraced Teria's children as her own, forming bonds that made their family seem whole. Lucretia blended into Teria's family with no problem, as she lived her life with them. This would often be seen in social media, especially Facebook, where they both shared moments of joy, parties, vacations, and celebrations. They were inseparable. What they had was a depiction of a promising love story. On December 3, 2023, after nearly 4 years of being together, Lucretia and Teria officially tied the knot and got married.
In name, one in name. In one we trust and happy destiny. Congratulations, you can now kiss your partner.
Thank you.
Nah.
Oh, I'm sweating.
Congrats.
Thank you. Congratulations.
They even got matching tattoos that read "Till Death Do Us Part," symbolizing what was meant to be a lifelong commitment. But what was meant to be beautiful became a dark omen. Behind the cameras and social media posts were constant arguments that the couple would have. With this, their relationship was hallmarked by breakups and reconciliation. Their love story was one of highs and lows, moments of deep affection followed by intense disputes. Despite the turmoil, they continued their relationship, believing that things would eventually get better. But as the months passed, their relationship would go into a turn that would eventually lead to a tragedy. And so, after 5 years, Lucretia decided to finally leave her relationship with Taria. But this was something that Taria would not take lightly. She held on tightly, unwilling to accept this sudden change. To her, losing Lucretia meant losing control, and that was something she refused to allow. But after 5 years of being together, Lucretia was done. And since Taria cannot hold on to Lucretia for much longer, she will make a tragic decision that will leave both their families devastated. On November 18th, 2023, the shocking turn of events would unfold. It was a supposed peaceful morning at 2179 Lincoln Avenue in Springfield Township, Ohio, which was Lucretia's residence, would be shattered by the sound of gunfire, alarming the entire neighborhood. Taria arrived at Lucretia's residence, consumed by rage and determination. She had driven across town with a purpose, her mind set on one thing. Whatever words were exchanged in those final moments would remain a mystery, but what happened next would change everything. Before Lucretia could even step outside, gunshots rang out, shattering the morning silence. Bullets were shot through the door, which was a violent foreshadowing of the events that would follow. And the moment Lucretia opened the door, Taria fired again, and this time the bullets hit Lucretia in the head. Betrayed by the woman she once loved, Lucretia fell down her porch. In an instant, the life of a woman so full of love and resilience was stolen away, leaving behind nothing but devastation. The entire commotion startled the neighbors. As they rushed to their windows, they witnessed the horrifying scene. Lucretia lay motionless outside her home, suffering from multiple gunshot wounds. This was when the harrowing 911 call was made by a man who was with Lucretia that morning.
The first shot was when the door was closed. The second shot was when the door was open and the shot been made and she fell down to the ground.
Is there children there?
Yes, there's 2.
Where's the other one? There should have been 3. They were just out there.
So one is at school, the other
Right.
one is upstairs.
When the police arrived at the scene, they found the unresponsive Lucretia, her life gone before the paramedics could even intervene. Right then and there, she was pronounced dead on site, leaving family, friends, and neighbors in shock.
Following some breaking news not related to traffic here this morning.
Yeah, so we're following this out of Springfield Township after we got reports of a woman who had been found after being shot, or I should say she was found with a gunshot wound. Our Taylor Davis live on the scene with what we know. Taylor, I know that you're just kind of now getting on the scene a few minutes ago, but what have you learned?
Well, we just learned from police here minutes ago that this unfortunately is a fatal event. Now, I want you guys to take a look because this is a very active scene right now. You can see where officers are here canvassing the area. You also see where they have this yellow caution tape blocking the entrance and blocking that area where they are doing their investigation at this time. So we're kind of seeing them walking in and out of one of those buildings there that they have blocked off. Now, what we learned here from Springfield Township Police is that one woman is dead after a gunshot wound to the head. Now, police arrived here just after 7 a.m. Now, this is at a housing complex here on Lincoln Avenue. Now, like I said, police are still investigating, so they haven't released anything more about this victim or if they are looking for a suspect at this time. But I did have a chance to speak to a neighbor who said he unfortunately heard the shots fired here when they happened. Now, us just standing here, it seems like such a very, very quiet neighborhood. So to that neighbor, this was shocking that this happened. But like I said,
at this point, the police had yet to confirm the identity of the shooter, but whispers of suspicion had already begun to spread. Some had seen a familiar car fleeing the scene, while others stood frozen, unable to process the horror that had just occurred.
Radio traffic between dispatchers and police made it sound as if they knew of the suspect and victim before the incident this morning. It sounds like they both knew each other. I spoke with a neighbor who says she's lived in this condo complex since 2017 and never witnessed anything like this.
All my neighbors were just peaceful. Everybody, nobody argues or anything. So like it's just shocking because nothing happen over here. Nothing. So it's crazy.
As investigators worked to piece together the events of that morning, one name kept surfacing, and soon Taria Brown became the focus of a statewide manhunt. Meanwhile, Taria had already fled the crime scene, crossing to another state. She escaped in a dark-colored 2014 Chevrolet Cruze, leaving behind the devastation she had caused. The vehicle she drove away with, which had been a familiar sight in Lucretia's driveway, was now a key piece of evidence in a homicide investigation. But the series of tragic events would not end with the death of Lucretia, because another tragedy was about to occur. As the news of the shooting spread, law enforcement launched a statewide search, determined to track her down before more tragedy could unfold. For officers, the urgency was clear. This was a woman on the run, unpredictable and armed. If she had already taken one life, there was no telling what she might do next. What the police did not know was it was only the beginning. Just 2 hours after the brutal crime at Springfield Township, the Indiana State Police spotted Taria on Interstate 65 in Clinton County, Indiana, and when they attempted to pull her over, Taria refused to stop. And what came after was the high-speed pursuit of the prime suspect. But it wasn't long until the chase would come to a devastating end. After over an hour of chase, Taria would finally make her stop at the Amoco gas station near State Route 28, where the deadly conclusion would take place. As officers surrounded the gas station, the tension grew. Taria, however, never stepped out of the dark-colored Chevrolet Cruze that had carried her across state lines. As the law enforcement tried to contain the situation, they moved cautiously, hoping for Taria to surrender peacefully. But no movement was made inside the vehicle, until a gunshot rang out from inside the car. In just an instant, the situation escalated. With the officers uncertain of what Taria would do next, they responded with multiple guns fired. The number of shots fired was still uncertain, but luckily no officer was hurt during the commotion. And when the chaos finally settled, the officers approached the vehicle to inspect Taria. As they peered inside, the truth became clear. What they found was her motionless body in the driver's seat and the gun that was responsible for the fate of 2 people. Before the paramedics could even arrive, the officers were already certain of the fate of Taria.
An early morning shooting in Springfield Township, leaving a person dead.
Now, we've been following this case closely and just got an update from officers.
Ken Brown has been working this story. Ken, what do you have?
Yeah, and we mean just got an update. We mean just got an update within the last 5 minutes. At this point, we got the 911 call in. We do want to get you the information that police were able to get us. Take a look at video from the scene earlier today. Springfield Township police say just after 7 a.m., they got a call for a person shot at an apartment complex along Lincoln Avenue. Officers found 33-year-old Lucretia Black shot and lying outside the front door of her apartment. She was pronounced dead at the scene. Police say they believe the person who was behind the trigger to be 42-year-old Taria Brown, who they say drove off to Clinton County, Indiana, where she allegedly got into a police chase with Indiana State Police. At the end of that chase, police say a gunshot was fired from inside Brown's vehicle, then troopers would open fire. Taria Brown was killed in that gunfire. So, a lot of questions still to ask here. Was that shot directed at officers? What exactly transpired after that chase ended? We're going to continue to ask those questions, continue to gather information, and bring you the very latest.
It remained unclear whether she had fired at the officers or she did the deed of taking her own life before they returned the fire. She was pronounced dead on the scene, just like Lucretia, who also lay dead 150 miles away. And with that, the pursuit had ended. But the devastation it left behind was irreversible. In just a span of hours, 2 lives were lost, one to a senseless act of violence, the other to a desperate attempt to escape its consequences.
So neighbors say they heard gunshots ring out just before 7 o'clock this morning. And since then, what transpired over the next few hours actually crossed state lines and have left the community shaken.
This is 911. Do you have an emergency?
Yes, someone's dead.
Springfield Township police officers called to a home on Lincoln Avenue after reports of a shooting. The victim, 33-year-old Lucretia Black, was found dead outside the front door of her home.
She got shot.
She got shot in the head?
Yes, with bullets.
Police identified the suspect as 42-year-old Taria Brown, saying she fled the scene before officers got there. A broadcast went out to try and locate her.
Subject wanted for questioning in a homicide that occurred in Springfield Township.
That's when troopers found her more than 150 miles away in Clinton County, Indiana. Brown led Indiana State Police on a chase. When the pursuit ended at a gas station, a shot was fired inside Brown's car, followed by shots fired by troopers on scene. Brown died at the scene.
We had people from here, from Clinton County, Tippecanoe County, Boone County, so agencies from all around came to assist with this, and we appreciate their quick response to assist our officers. That can sometimes be in an area that not a lot of other agencies are around, so we appreciate all the assistance from the surrounding agencies.
No troopers were injured. Meanwhile, neighbors in Springfield Township are left shaken by the news.
Shocked, surprised. It don't happen up here.
And now grieving this sudden loss and the horrific events that followed.
Now, police have not said how the victim or the suspect knew each other, but they are asking anyone with information on either incident here in Ohio or in Indiana to come forward.
As investigators pieced together the events of that morning, their focus shifted beyond just the crime scenes. Looking through everything, they eventually found the relationship between Lucretia and Taria, shedding light on the reason for this tragedy. Witnesses were interviewed, friends and family were questioned, and past incidents between Lucretia and Taria were carefully examined. And with every piece of evidence that came, a clearer picture began to emerge.
They knocked on the door and told me that it was a bullet hole in my window.
A traumatizing Monday morning. Linda Sales says she looked outside of her Springfield Township apartment to see police officers and crime tape, then realized someone shot and killed her neighbor, Lucretia Black, just feet from her door, and one of those bullets hit her back window.
It's so blessed and lucky that I was sleeping, that I was in the back. I'm so thankful that my grandkids wasn't here, because that's the area where they play, eat, and spend their time.
Minutes earlier.
911, do you have an emergency?
Yes, someone's dead.
A 911 call from a man who was with Black.
Who is this person to you? A friend?
She's like a caretaker to me.
At the time, the man who called wasn't sure who shot her.
Okay, do you know of her? Like, have you seen her before, or was she just a stranger?
I saw her a couple of times.
We found out through Hamilton County court records, Lucretia Black and the suspect, 42-year-old Taria Brown, were married. One friend of Black described their relationship to WCPO 9 News as on again, off again, and the two would fight often. About 2.5 hours later, after the fatal shooting in Springfield Township, another shooting, this time between Brown and Indiana State Police on I-65 in Clinton County. ISP said troopers tried to stop Brown on the interstate, but said she never stopped, and during the chase, fired at troopers from her car. Troopers shot back at her. SWAT was also called and discovered Brown dead in her car. Indiana State Police said they recovered a gun from Brown's car, but they didn't make it clear if she died from shots by state troopers.
The turbulence in their relationship, the struggles behind closed doors, and the emotional weight both women carried had all been leading up to this moment. Back in Springfield Township grief, friends and family of both women struggled to make sense of what had happened. The community that was once peaceful and quiet is now bearing the tragedy that unfolded in a matter of hours. In the days that followed, another detail would emerge, one that would allow the authorities to grasp the dark reality behind the tragedy. But it wasn't just Lucretia's family and friends that were left reeling and devastated. On social media, Taria's daughter, Mumu, also expressed her grief, while ultimately defending her beloved mother. She wrote on Facebook, "I'm trying so hard not to break down and give in to the internet when it comes to defending my mama, Taria Brown. So many outsiders are twisting the story to fit their own selfish narrative, but nobody knows the real truth. I'm still waiting for her to call me, y'all. If you're against me or speaking negatively, remove me right now." On November 20, 2024, balloon releases were done by the two families as a symbol of commemorating the memories of both women. And on November 30, 2024, the two families prepared to lay their loved ones to rest. Funeral services were held for both Lucretia Black and Taria Brown, each surrounded by grieving relatives and friends, trying to come to terms with the heartbreaking reality of what had happened. Lucretia and Taria's story serves as a reminder that love should never feel like a trap, and leaving should not come at the cost of one's life. But time and time again, cases like this emerge, and we are reminded of the chilling reminders of how dangerous a toxic relationship can become. Lucretia's story is not just a tragedy, it's a warning, one that should never be.
I knew it all along, you son of a bitch, and I'm finna beat your. Don't play with me. I seen that in my own eyes, and I'm finna dust ass. And I mean that, you been lying, ho. You a liar. And I'm finna beat you now, bitch. Don't ever hang up when I'm yelling. Don't ever hang up. Don't ever hang up my face.
She ain't finna answer me.
She know.
By the evening of November 16, 2022, the unthinkable happened. A woman was found fatally wounded inside her Atlanta home, her youngest child standing only a few feet away. The house she had dreamed of, the life she had built brick by brick, had become the stage for her final moments. This was Cornisha Butler, a young mother of 4 who was shot in the face by her wife after Cornisha finally told her the harsh truth that she was not ready to hear. Cameras caught the terrifying incident unfolding with the gun in the killer's hands. She had done everything right, at least everything she thought she could. Police reports, restraining orders, repeated calls for help. Time after time, she tried to shield herself and her children from danger. But the very system designed to protect her moved too slowly, and in the end, it was too late. But as the police dug deep into the investigation, they discovered that this wasn't just a crime, it was the explosion of years of escalating abuse, ignored warnings, and missed opportunities to intervene. This was the life and death of Cornisha Butler. Her tragic end unfolded in the city of Atlanta, Georgia, in the USA. The city pulses with vibrant culture, lush urban parks, colorful street art, historic architecture, and a dynamic mix of long-standing locals, creative souls, and bustling young professionals. But in 2022, the city's beauty was shadowed by a troubling rise in violent crime. Homicides surged to levels not seen in decades, and robberies and car theft became a growing concern, leaving many residents both proud of their city's vibrancy and uneasy about its safety. But Cornisha was not always in this city. She had been born elsewhere. Cornisha Butler was born and raised in Memphis, Tennessee. From an early age, she carried a strong sense of independence and determination. Friends described her as magnetic, the kind of person who walked into a room and instantly drew attention with her laughter and warmth. Family called her the glue that held everyone together, the one who could ease tension with a joke or brighten any gathering with her presence. But behind that charisma was also grit. Life didn't hand her anything easily. She became a mother at a young age, and while many might have struggled to balance responsibility with ambition, Cornisha thrived. Her 4 children, 3 daughters and 1 son, became her driving force. Everything she pursued, every late-night hustle and early morning sacrifice was for them. By day, she sharpened her skills in finance, working as a registered tax preparer. She knew numbers, she knew systems, and she used that knowledge to provide for others while carving out financial stability for her family. By night, she leaned into her creative passions as a licensed esthetician, building a clientele that trusted her to bring out their best selves. For Cornisha, the dual careers weren't just jobs, They were stepping stones to freedom. But even more than work, she dreamed of building something lasting. She wanted her children to have the security she never had, and that vision led her to Atlanta. Moving wasn't easy, but she poured everything into it, eventually buying her dream home, a spacious 5-bedroom house where her children could grow up surrounded by safety, love, and opportunity. That house became her sanctuary. Family gatherings filled it with laughter and life. Birthdays, holidays, and late-night dinners with friends were captured on social media, where she proudly showed just how far she had come. For Cornisha, that home wasn't just square footage. It was proof of her resilience, a legacy she hoped to leave for her children. But behind the smiles and the celebrations, a storm was slowly brewing in the form of a lover. In 2016, Cornisha began a relationship with a woman named Shakia Perkins. At first, it seemed like the kind of love story people dream of. Shakia was attentive, charming, and appeared to give Cornisha the support she had long deserved. Within months, they were living together, blending their lives in ways that made everything look picture perfect from the outside. But soon cracks began to show. What started as minor signs of jealousy escalated into control. Shakia questioned her movements, accused her of dishonesty, and grew increasingly possessive. Over time, arguments spiraled into violence. The property was destroyed. Threats became constant. And while Cornisha tried to keep things together for the sake of her family, the relationship grew more toxic with every passing year. Still, she tried to move forward. She filed reports, sought restraining orders, and even distanced herself from Shakia more than once. But each time she pushed back, the retaliation grew worse. Friends noticed her withdrawing from social gatherings. The family noticed the fear in her voice. What once looked like love was now a cage tightening around her. And even as she tried to separate herself, the cycle of abuse refused to end. By late 2021, the violence escalated to shocking new levels. There were police reports from September 2021 describing how Shakia had rammed Cornisha's car on the road, attempting to push her off and then striking her vehicle again. Days later, another report detailed how she forced her way into Cornisha's home, damaging the doorframe in a jealous rage. Later that same month, fire investigators responded to a blaze at Cornisha's home. 2 of her vehicles, including her cherished pink Mercedes-Benz, were destroyed, and flames licked dangerously close to the house itself. Investigators labeled it arson, and suspicion immediately fell on Shakia. Then came the threats. Cornisha received chilling text messages that spelled out precisely what she intended to do. In one, she made a very bold claim. She told Cornisha she would soon be dead and that she didn't care if it landed her in prison. In another, she made it clear she was aiming for first degree, not second. These weren't vague outbursts, they were detailed roadmaps of intent. Fires, threats, stalking, each incident was more disturbing than the last. Police intervened multiple times, arrests were made. But time and time again, bond was granted and Shakia returned to the streets. Despite repeated restraining orders and clear patterns of danger, the cycle continued unchecked. Cornisha fought to protect herself, but she was up against more than just one person. She was battling a system that treated escalating abuse as isolated events rather than pieces of the same terrifying puzzle. 13 times she called for help. 13 times she asked for protection. Each time the response was too slow, too weak, or too temporary. Still, she clung to hope and tried to live her life. She decorated her new home for the holidays, planning to host Thanksgiving with her children for the very first time. She wanted to show them that despite everything, joy could still exist, but the peace she longed for was about to be shattered. On November 16, 2022, danger arrived at her front door. Neighbors later recalled hearing the commotion, but nothing could prepare them for what was happening inside. Cornisha and Shakia were wrapped up in a heated argument. Cornisha was done with the toxic relationship, but Shakia was not going to let go so easily. As emotions got high and heated, something in Shakia snapped and she turned to leave. But the fight was only taking a dangerous turn. Instead of walking away from the argument, camera footage caught her going into her car to retrieve a gun, which she took back in with her. She was determined to end the arguments and fighting once and for all. It did not matter that Cornisha's youngest child was home that day, resting nearby. Shakia raised the gun at Cornisha, and made a decision. Moments later, gunshots rang out. When the first 911 call came in just after 6 p.m., dispatchers relayed urgent reports of gunfire inside a home. Within minutes, patrol cars raced down neighborhood streets, sirens echoing against the quiet backdrop of family homes preparing for the holidays. Officers arrived to find a scene no one could forget. The front door stood partially open, and a neighbor was waiting outside, pointing towards the house with fear in their eyes. Inside, the silence was heavy, broken only by the cries of a child. There, on the living room floor, lay 29-year-old Cornisha Butler, struck multiple times at close range. Blood pooled beneath her, her holiday decorations still glowing in the background, a chilling contrast between life's celebration and her gory death. First responders attempted RPR, but the injuries were catastrophic. Cornisha was pronounced dead on the scene. Her youngest child, only a toddler, was pulled from the house, physically unharmed, but forever changed by what they had witnessed. But the horror didn't stop with what they saw. Detectives immediately noticed signs pointing to a premeditated act. This wasn't a burglary gone wrong or a random attack. This was targeted, intimate, and deeply personal. As investigators canvassed the neighborhood, multiple residents stepped forward. One neighbor described seeing a vehicle circling earlier in the evening, moving slowly, parking for long stretches as if waiting for something. Others said that they had heard voices raised inside the home, followed by the sharp cracks of gunfire. Meanwhile, forensic teams scoured the house. Shell casings were recovered, confirming the weapon used was a 9mm handgun. Security cameras from surrounding homes and street corners were pulled for review. Every angle mattered. Every second of footage could reveal the suspect's movements. It didn't take long for the pieces to fall into place. Cornisha's family members quickly confirmed what police already feared, that the likely suspect was her estranged partner, Shakia Perkins. And as investigators dug deeper, a disturbing picture began to emerge. For South Fulton detectives, this was not the first time they had seen Shakia's name attached to reports involving Cornisha. In fact, they discovered a trail of violence stretching back over a year. There were police reports from September 2021 describing how Shakia's violent, obsessive, and controlling behavior towards Cornisha.
She tried to run Cornisha off the road in her car, and this all happened within months of this incident. Also, there was an incident where she set Cornisha's car, she had a Jeep, set her car on fire in the driveway.
But despite all of this, despite restraining orders and repeated arrests, court documents showed that judges had allowed her out on bond. At the time of the murder, she was still facing pending charges for assault, property damage, and arson. Yet she was free to walk the streets. But now they had a prime suspect. Detectives working the scene on November 16 knew immediately who they were looking for. An all-points bulletin was issued for Shakia Perkins. Units spread out across Fulton County, while the homicide team began tracing her digital footprint. Cell phone data quickly became the key. Her device pinged towers near the crime scene that evening, placing her in the area at the exact time of the shooting. Minutes later, the signal traveled across town, stopping at an apartment complex tied to her sister. Then the police made their move. By 10:30 that night, the South Fulton Tactical Unit had the building surrounded. Officers moved quietly, positioning themselves at entry points while negotiators prepared to make contact. The atmosphere was tense. This was an armed suspect who had just demonstrated she was capable of extreme violence. But when the door opened, the reality was far different. Shakia did not fight. She surrendered without resistance, hands raised, her demeanor shifting between sobbing hysteria and chilling calm. Body camera footage later revealed her muttering, fragmented phrases. She mumbled statements that seemed to absolve herself of blame, as if she believed she had no choice. Then, inside her vehicle, parked nearby, investigators found the evidence that tied everything together. A 9mm handgun, the same caliber used in the killing. A notebook with details of Cornisha's daily schedule and routines. And on her phone, a draft message never sent. "It's done now. You can't leave me again." The arrest brought a moment of relief to Cornisha's family and neighbors, but it also brought frustration. Police Chief Keith Meadows later admitted that his officers had done everything within their power, charging Shakia in 4 separate domestic violence cases the year before. But each time, the court granted bond, Each time she was free to return. The tragedy now stood as an indictment not just of an individual's violent obsession, but of a system that had failed to protect a mother who had done everything she could to seek help. And yet, even as detectives closed the file on their investigation, the real battle was just beginning. The trial would not only expose the brutality of Shakia's actions, but also test whether the justice system could deliver the accountability that Cornisha had been denied in life. The courtroom was packed when the trial of Shakia Perkins began. Journalists, activists, and community members filled the benches, each one aware that this was more than just a murder trial, it was a test of accountability. The prosecution opened with a timeline of violence, laying bare the long trail of abuse that led to November 16. Piece by piece, they mapped out the story of escalation: the car ramming, the forced entry, the arson, the restraining order violations, and finally, the shooting. Every piece of evidence was presented with precision. Forensic experts confirmed that shell casings at the crime scene matched the 9mm recovered from Shakia's car. Cell tower records placed her near Cornisha's home at the time of the killing. And then came the most haunting evidence of all: the text messages where she had promised that one day Cornisha would be dead. But what hit hardest was not the forensic analysis. It was the testimony of those who had lived through the nightmare. Neighbors described hearing arguments, witnessing destruction, and watching Cornisha's fear grow over time. Friends recalled late-night phone calls where she whispered that she didn't feel safe, that she believed one day her partner would carry out the threats. But the most powerful moments came from inside Cornisha's own family. Her children's voices were heard through victim impact statements read aloud by advocates. They spoke of birthdays without their mother, holidays that felt empty, and the silence that replaced her laughter. The jury listened, visibly shaken. Meanwhile, the defense painted a different picture. They described Shakia as a woman spiraling from mental health struggles, arguing that her actions were the result of emotional instability rather than calculated intent. They claimed the shooting was a sudden outburst, not premeditated murder. But the jury was unconvinced. The text messages, the notebook detailing Cornisha's routines, and the eyewitness accounts painted a chilling portrait of intent. After days of testimony and only hours of deliberation, the jury returned with its verdict. It was intense. They found her guilty of first-degree murder, firearm possession during a felony, and cruelty to children for forcing a toddler to witness the crime. The courtroom fell silent as the judge delivered the sentence: life in prison without the possibility of parole. Shakia Perkins would never walk free again. For Cornisha's loved ones, the verdict brought some measure of relief, but not peace. Outside the courthouse, her sister Tarika spoke with quiet strength. She explained that while justice had been served in the legal sense, the true justice, bringing Cornisha back, was something the system could never deliver. Community members echoed her words. Vigils were held throughout South Fulton and Atlanta. Balloons were released into the sky, candles lit in her honor. Social media flooded with tributes, pictures, videos, and stories about her kindness, her determination, and her role as a loving mother of four. Yet among the tears, there was also anger. Activists pointed out how many times she had begged for help. How many times had she called the police, filed reports, and stood in courtrooms? Each time the danger was minimized. Each time she was left to face her abuser alone. For many, this was not just Cornisha's tragedy. It was a symbol of how the system fails domestic violence victims again and again. When the day of her funeral arrived, the grief was overwhelming. Family, friends, and community members filled the sanctuary to capacity, with even more standing outside. Her casket, adorned with flowers, became a focal point of mourning, but also of strength. Her children, dressed in white, sat in the front row surrounded by relatives who promised to protect them in her absence. The service was filled with both sorrow and celebration. Pastors spoke of her resilience, her dreams, and her unwavering devotion to her children. Friends remembered her laughter, her warmth, her ability to light up a room. But even after the funeral, one question remained. How could this have been prevented? Police Chief Keith Meadows himself admitted that their officers had done everything they could, but the courts released Shakia on bond again and again. The district attorney had opposed that bond, warning she was dangerous, but her release still came. The system saw the warning signs and yet allowed them to be ignored. And so Cornisha's story stands as both a tragedy and a call to action. How many more families must endure this kind of loss before domestic violence is taken as seriously as it should be? How many victims must file police reports only to see their abusers walk free days later? For those of us outside these situations, the call to action is clear. Support victims when they reach out, believe their stories, and demand more from the systems meant to protect them. Because if Cornisha's story teaches us anything, it's that silence and inaction are not neutral. They are deadly.